Welcome. Today I'm opening a doorway into the Radiant Empathy Children's Campus, a universe built inside the same compass that guides the main Radiant Empathy game for adults. But this branch of the universe has its own magic. Just like in the adult game, players are not led through empathy. They discover it by walking a path, choosing mentors, solving problems, and learning through their senses. Children step into the forest you see here, a hidden part of the Cascade Head biosphere, and from the moment they enter, they're surrounded by possibility. A world where art, science, memory, and courage all meet. A world that speaks their language, whether they learn through sound, movement, logic, imagination, or story. Every child begins here, every child receives a compass, and every child chooses their own path. This is the first look at that universe, how it connects to the larger Radiant Empathy project, and how it grows the next generation of emotionally intelligent, resilient, creative thinkers. This is the world I've been building for decades, a world where psychology, storytelling, neuroscience, and art meet in one place. The Radiant Empathy Campus is the children's wing of the larger Radiant Empathy universe. In the adult game, players navigate complex emotional landscapes. Here at the Radiant Empathy Campus of the University of NeuroDiversity, we translate those same principles into play, wonder, and imagination without watering anything down. This isn't a game only for neurodiverse children. It's also for neurotypical children who live in neurodivergent families, children who often become the emotional interpreters, mediators, or peacemakers far too early. Radiant Empathy gives all children and teens a place to feel understood, supported, and empowered. The setting you see here is Cascade Head, a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. It represents what this entire project is about. A living environment where systems interact, much like families, communities, and minds. Children and teens arrive at the campus not to be taught empathy, but to experience it across stories, mentors, and quests. Every trail, every building, every guide, from Mother Nature to Captain Kim to Jameson Jet, is designed to model the Radiant Empathy Compass in action. What you're about to see is how we bring empathy to life for a generation raised on games, not lectures. A generation hungry for agency, magic, and truth. Mother Nature greets every explorer, NT or ND, because the Radiant Empathy Campus is designed for children and teens who are navigating mixed neurology homes. Some children come feeling unseen or overburdened. Others come feeling misunderstood or overwhelmed. Mother Nature stands as a mentor who embraces both journeys. This is the moment every child remembers, their first guide. At the children's campus, entry is never passive. Each student is greeted by Mother Nature, a central figure in both the children's universe and the adult Radiant Empathy game. She's the bridge between worlds, the same guardian presence, simply meeting children and teens at their level. Mother Nature explains what the campus truly is, not a school in the traditional sense, but a living world woven into the Cascade Head biosphere, a place where empathy is not taught from a book, but experienced through quests, music, maps, mentors, and courage. Every child arrives with something different in their hands, sometimes headphones, sometimes a sketchbook, sometimes nothing but questions. Mother Nature begins by helping them discover which sense, which strength, which curiosity will open their first door. This slide introduces the idea that Radiant Empathy is multimodal, multisensory, and deeply personal. Just like the adult game, each player's journey begins with a mentor, but quickly becomes self-directed. This is the children's entry point into the same larger Radiant Empathy universe, but in a language designed for their brains, their attention, and their innate wonder. Mother Nature welcomes her new students to the University of NeuroDiversity. Here the teens finally step onto the Radiant Empathy campus. This is their gateway, the moment where the everyday world quietly dissolves and something new begins. These two teens represent both worlds. Dariya, a neurotypical, carrying the invisible emotional load common in neurodivergent households. Kai, who's neurodiverse, carrying the challenge of navigating a world that expects them to fit. At the University of NeuroDiversity, they enter together because radiant empathy is a shared path, not a divided one. Mother Nature is their first guide. I designed her this way for a reason. She represents steadiness, attunement, and unconditional welcome, the things so many children from neurodivergent homes are desperately missing in real life. She doesn't lecture. She doesn't overwhelm. She orients them. She invites them into a place where differences aren't pathologized. They're honored. A place where curiosity is the currency and their nervous systems are treated with dignity. And the teenagers you see here, they're stand-ins for every child who arrives carrying a private blend of hope, fear, and longing. They're stepping under the arch of the University of NeuroDiversity, but symbolically, they're stepping into a world where they finally make sense. Mother Nature introduces them to the radiant empathy compass, the heart of the entire radiant empathy universe. She shows them that whatever path they choose, music, memory, geometry, courage, they'll always have true north to guide them. This slide marks the true beginning of their journey. Jameson Jet appears, the child of becoming. Now something unusual happens. Mother Nature has brought the teens through the gate, and the moment they enter campus proper, Jameson Jet appears. Jameson's not a typical guide, though. He's the child of becoming, the character who embodies the heart of radiant empathy for children. Jameson appears for all children, not as a hero for one group, but as a guide who adapts to whomever needs him most. He is what they need exactly when they need it. In this moment, he shows up as a confident older teen, a little mischievous, a little magical, instantly charismatic. Look at the way the kids are drawn to him. It's subtle, but it's powerful. He's someone they feel safe with, even though they don't quite know why. This is one of the secrets of the campus. Mentorship form in ways that help children regulate, trust, and move forward. Jameson represents possibility. He helps kids step out of fear and into curiosity. He's the first spark of, maybe I can do this. Jameson's presence demonstrates that radiant empathy isn't just a concept, it's built into the architecture of the world. Mother Nature hands the students off to him at this moment, signaling their transition from orientation to adventure. This is where their journey truly begins. We step into one of the most remarkable elements of the children's universe, Jameson Jet, the child of becoming. Jameson is not bound to one age or one storyline. He appears exactly as a child meets him. Sometimes he arrives as a radiant infant, pure potential. Sometimes he's a playful, laughing boy. Sometimes he's a thoughtful companion. And sometimes he's the grounded 18-year-old guide, steady and confident. Jameson is the embodiment of becoming itself, the bridge between wonder, memory, and courage. And this is where radiant empathy stands, apart from traditional children's games or social, emotional curricula. It is explicitly built for both neurodiverse children who experience the world through unique sensory and cognitive pathways, and neurotypical children who live inside neurodivergent family systems, trying to understand parents or siblings whose emotional language is different from their own. Both groups are navigating developmental tasks that are often invisible to the adults around them. Jameson gives them a companion who meets them where they are. Neurotypical children learn that their clarity, their emotional fluency, and their relational instincts are strengths, not burdens. Neurodiverse children feel seen, respected, and supported without being pushed to mask. Jameson serves as the universal guide across this spectrum. He adapts to the emotional age, not the chronological age of the child. He models that we are all in motion, all evolving, all learning to carry our inner compass more confidently. And in this way, Jameson becomes the connective thread between the adult radiant empathy game and the children's campus. Same philosophy, same compass, simply expressed through different developmental lenses. The teens meet Danny and Xena, the wounded guardian tree. Danny is one of the most important heart guides on the campus. He's a young man with Down syndrome. But in the radiant empathy universe, Danny is never defined by a diagnosis. He is defined by his presence, open-hearted, grounded, and wise in the way only someone who has suffered gently and loved fiercely can be. He stands beside Xena, the guardian tree, who carries a wound that glows through her bark, a reminder that empathy does not come from being perfect, but from surviving what nearly broke us. Notice that Danny has a small companion, Evan, a tiny dragonfly who knows his way around the biosphere, from the forest to the river to the ocean to the meadow. Danny and Evan are inseparable. This moment is meaningful for both kinds of players who come into our world. Neurodiverse children who often know too well what it feels like to be misunderstood or underestimated. Neurotypical children in neurodivergent families who carry invisible emotional labor, watching, adapting, trying to make sense of adult storms they can't prevent. Danny meets both with the same warmth. He doesn't fix the teens. He doesn't lecture them. He simply stands with them the way safe people do. And here's the beautiful twist. Danny is the one who knows Jameson Jet best, because Danny always notices what others overlook. He's the first to say with that little laugh of his, "Don't worry, Jameson does that all the time." Meaning, Jameson's shifting ages aren't mistakes. They're an invitation to see differently. Danny becomes a living model of radiant empathy, steady, unhurried, deeply attuned. For neurodiverse kids, he's a peer they can finally relate to, and for neurotypical kids, he's a reminder that leadership doesn't always look like authority. Sometimes it looks like kindness. The journey to the cradle of becoming. Here the teens continue deeper into the woods, and for the first time they travel together as a team, NT and NT, side by side. And guiding them now is not the toddler or the childlike Jameson Jet you saw earlier, but the 18-year-old version, playful, charismatic, magnetic. He shows up in the age and form the children need most. This is the magic of the child of becoming. And of course Danny is still with them, steady, warm, beating the drum that anchors the group emotionally. Children feel Danny's presence before they understand it. His rhythm regulates the nervous system. He becomes the heart of the trail. And notice something subtle. The teens are no longer following Mother Nature. They're now following Jameson Jet, guided by their own glowing compasses, internal, not external. This is an important principle of radiant empathy. We scaffold children gently, then hand them back their own agency. This journey is not about fixing children. It's about giving them the courage to trust their inner compass. Whether they are neurodiverse or neurotypical, whether they struggle with emotional overload or carry the burden of overfunctioning in a neurodivergent home. This slide shows the hinge moment when they step across that threshold. The trail beneath them becomes a metaphor for the shared path of growing up in neurodivergent families. Messy, tangled, beautiful, and always navigable when we learn to walk together. The cradle of becoming. Now we arrive at one of the most tender and transformative moments in the entire children's universe. The cradle of becoming. This is where memory, imagination, grief, and courage all meet. And notice what happens here. Jameson Jet has shifted again, not the charismatic teen guide anymore, but a toddler with that irresistible glow of innocence and wisdom intertwined. He becomes small so the children can find their own largeness. Dariya is writing. This is intentional. Every child who enters this space is invited to write a message to themselves, to someone they've lost, to a part of their story that still needs healing. For neurotypical children in neurodivergent families, this is often the first time someone is asked what they need, what they feel, what they long for. For neurodiverse children, it's a place where their memories and sensory worlds can be honored without pressure or judgment. Kai, the teen in the middle, looks up. He's witnessing something that feels bigger than words. Some children write, some observe, and some simply feel. All paths are welcome here. And look there, Danny peeking in through the opening. He doesn't come inside because he already knows the truth. This place belongs to the children. But his joy, his presence, his laughter, they reassure them that they are safe enough to be vulnerable. The cradle of becoming is where children discover that empathy is not something transferred from adult to child. It is something that awakens within. It is the moment when the game stops being entertainment and becomes a personal mirror, a place where the young players claim authorship over who they are becoming. This is radiant empathy in its purest form, not teaching children what to feel, but helping them hear the truth already inside them. Beyond the cradle of becoming, leaving the cradle of becoming is not an ending, it's a turning of the page. Once children have touched that first spark of radiant empathy, the University of NeuroDiversity opens up before them like a constellation of houses, each one awakening a different way of knowing. And this is so important. Every child, neurotypical and neurodiverse, is divided to discover the form of knowledge that feels most natural to them. Some begin in the heart line, where emotions and memory are translated into light. Others wander toward the sound gardens, learning how rhythm regulates the nervous system. Some, like Kai, follow Aurelia into the mathematics hall and the sacred geometry lab, where the boundary between music and math dissolves. Every house teaches empathy through its own doorway. This is not a linear path. There are no levels, no winners or losers, just children following what stirs them. Whether that is sound, story, movement, pattern, or wonder. The adventure continues because empathy grows through exploration, not instruction. And here, within the children's universe, every pathway eventually leads them back to the compass, back to themselves, and back to one another. Now that we've stepped beyond the cradle, it's important to understand something essential about the Radiant Empathy Children's Campus. There is no single storyline. Children don't march through a predetermined sequence. Instead, they choose their mentors, their house, and their pace, just like they do in real life. This is crucial because the game is designed for all children. Neurotypical children who often carry the emotional load in neurodivergent families, and neurodiverse children who are brilliant, deep, literal, and sometimes overwhelmed by the relational world. Each child enters the campus with a different nervous system, a different map, and a different question in their heart. The Radiant Empathy Compass helps unify them. They might follow sound, pattern, story, movement, or memory as their first language of empathy. And because each child's pathway is unique, they meet different guides along the way. Which brings us to Aurelia, a peer mentor whose gift is translating emotion through music and mathematics. She becomes especially important for children who regulate through sound, pattern, and sensory rhythm. She's the doorway to the sound gardens and to the mathematics hall, and eventually to the sacred geometry lab where music becomes number and number becomes light. So let's meet her. Now we meet Aurelia, one of the most gifted peer mentors at the University of NeuroDiversity. Aurelia is neurotypical, and she plays an essential role in this world because she has a natural ease with emotional nuance. She doesn't overwhelm, she invites. She listens between the lines, and she's learned how to translate feelings into something Kai and the children like Kai can actually use. Notice where we find them. The mathematics hall, a place where emotional learning is expressed through pattern, harmony, and structure. This matters because many neurodiverse children and many neurotypical children raised in neurodivergent homes make sense of the world through systems and patterns before they can make sense of people. Aurelia brings her cello because, in this universe, music is mathematics in motion. It becomes a bridge, a way of showing Kai, you don't have to feel everything the way others do. There are other pathways into empathy, and you already possess one. She doesn't push him. She simply stands beside him and lets her presence do what presence does best, soften the edges and opens the doorway to curiosity. And that doorway will take them both someplace extraordinary, because behind the mathematics hall is the entrance to the sacred geometry lab, where sound becomes number, number becomes light, and the heart begins to recognize itself in pattern. This is where Kai learns that empathy isn't one language, it's many. And every child, neurodiverse or neurotypical, deserves a pathway that feels like home. From the mathematics hall, Aurelia brings Kai deeper into the university, to one of its most profound spaces, the sacred geometry lab. In this room, the air hums with a kind of ancient order, not rigid, alive. Here, number becomes vibration, vibration becomes form, and form becomes emotion. Aurelia knows that Kai understands the world through patterns long before he understands it through feelings. So she doesn't lecture him. She plays a single note on her cello. And in this universe, that is enough. The note bends light. It folds geometry. And suddenly, Kai is no longer his teenage self. He's the younger boy he once was. The age where music and math weren't two subjects but one continuous ribbon of truth. Aurelia transforms too, back into her younger self, because empathy in this world is reciprocal. No one learns alone. No one grows alone, and no one travels alone. Together, they step to the doorway of resonant light and find themselves in ancient Egypt, surrounded by builders, stonecutters, star readers, and musicians, people who understood instinctively what modern minds have forgotten, that architecture is frozen music, that melody is mathematics softened by the human heart, that sacred geometry is a blueprint of creation itself. Aurelia doesn't have to explain any of this to Kai. He feels it, he remembers it, because this is a world where neurodiverse and neurotypical children discover that empathy has many languages, and one of them is ancient, elegant, and mathematical. This journey shows Kai and every child who plays this game that the way they naturally make sense of the world is not wrong, it's not broken, it's beautiful. It is part of the universal pattern, and from here, their adventure continues. Here in ancient Egypt, something beautiful happens. Aurelia and Kai have stepped through the sacred geometry lab, and they emerge not as teenagers, but as their younger selves. The age before school divided the world into music and math, before life taught them to choose one way of knowing over another. This is the age when both domains live together inside them effortlessly. Aurelia feels the music of the desert wind before she even opens her eyes. Kai hears the rhythm of geometry long before he notices the pyramids. He doesn't need complex explanations, the ratios, the harmonics, the star alignments. He feels the pattern in his bones. This is the magic of regression in the Radiant Empathy Campus. Children return to the age where their knowing was pure, intuitive, and unbroken. And here, among the pyramid builders who understood that architecture was frozen music, that stone was shaped by vibration, and that sound and numbers spoke the same language, Kai finally finds his place. Aurelia leads with movement. Kai leads with pattern, and both are right. This slide is where NT and ND children see themselves working side by side, discovering that their differences are not obstacles, but complementary forms of intelligence. In Egypt, they remember a truth their older selves forgot. Music and math were never separate. They were always one. And so are we. Let me close by bringing us back to the three guardians who anchor the entire Radiant Empathy universe, the constellation that orients every child who steps into this world, whether they're neurotypical, neurodiverse, or navigating the beautiful complexity of a neurodivergent family. Mother Nature is the doorway. She meets children exactly where they are, shy, bold, curious, overwhelmed, and welcomes them without condition. She's the mentor of grounded wisdom, of the body, of belonging. She teaches that empathy begins with noticing the forest air, the rhythm of footfalls, the courage it takes simply to take the next step. Captain Kim is the navigator. She holds the radiant empathy compass, not as a weapon but as a light. She teaches children to move through their feelings, not around them, to stand steady in relationships that are sometimes confusing or mismatched, and to translate empathy into action, not just emotion. She's the bridge between art and science, intuition and structure, the voice that whispers, "You already know more than you think." And the maker, my own presence woven into the world. This is the quiet architect. She tends the hearth, reminds children and adults that stories heal, that reflection is power, and that creativity is a kind of truth-telling. The maker holds the long view, watching each child grow from overwhelm to coherence, from confusion to radiant empathy. Together, these three create a full circle. Mother Nature grounds the child in the natural world. Captain Kim guides them through the intellectual and emotional terrains, and the maker preserves their stories and invites them to shape new ones. This is the heart of the Radiant Empathy Children's Campus, a place where art, science, memory, courage, music, mathematics, sacred geometry, imagination, and empathy finally live in harmony, the way children already live inside their own minds. A place where neurotypical and neurodiverse children learn not only about one another, but with one another, and ultimately for one another. A place where becoming human is a shared adventure. And this is what we are building together.